one note on Tatum was the free throws you mentioned, John. 13 for 13. Last night, he didn't go to the line once. So it's like, it's kind of wild. I mean, this guy's style of play is kind of all over the place right now. But, I mean, he's finding a way to score. So
one more thing on Semi. You don't think of him as a floor spacer, and this is kind of what Joe Sway said. And Scal actually made me think of this. This was the third point, John. He had 3 great calls tonight, burying Siakam, the walk of shame at the end of the game,
that was funny.
and talking about the spacing on the floor for Tatum. That second unit that they got out there with Tatum, Semi, the guards, there was just so much more space on the floor out there for him. And we've talked about Grant's corner three-point shooting issues. Semi seems to have that shot down. We talked about Neesmith possibly being that guy who can space from the corner. But Semi right now is a floor spacer for Tatum. That's another guy who's just going to make it that much easier for him tonight. What I love most about this game is all of Tatum's minutes look easy, right? Like the floor was wide open. He could just walk to the basket. He could pull up because guys are stretched back. Like they just put great lineups out there to complement him. And I got to say guys, there's a path this year to Jayson Tatum winning MVP. There really is. I mean, you look at the on-off numbers, you think of what the team looks like offensively without him. With him, I think it's up to close to 19 points per 100 possessions, the difference in the team's net rating on the floor versus off the floor. You think of how injured the team is, and they could be a 2 seed, maybe a 1 seed, probably a 2 seed is more likely. And all of a sudden, you have a pretty good narrative there. Jayson Tatum saved this team while they were hobbled and injured. They ended up having a great year. And look at what does he have? 2 game-winning shots in 8 games now? At that rate, like he has a pretty good narrative there. Now, there's always going to be a ton of competition. But is he at least in the picture, guys? I don't even think you can deny it.
Oh, I mean, he's in competition on his own.
Bobby. Not at all. I mean, look at his teammate, Jaylen Brown. I mean, there's only 2 guys in the NBA that have scored more points up until this point. I mean, if we're talking about what the future's going to hold, maybe, possibly. I don't know if Jaylen's going to be a 30-point scorer year-round, but if Jaylen keeps cooking like this, and Jayson Tatum, they're both playing off of each other, that's great for the Celtics. They're compiling wins together, but I think it really damages the whole Tatum for MVP conversation because you have Jaylen Brown right there playing, neck and neck with Tatum, and I think both of them are guiding the Celtics team right now.
Yeah, I agree with Joe Sway on that. I mean, believe it or not, Jaylen Brown may ruin Jayson Tatum's MVP bid, if you can believe that. But
this is insane.
It's not. Hey, listen, if you're a Celtics fan, you're fine with that because that means you have like a 2-headed monster. I mean, if both these guys end up on all NBA teams, that's better than one guy being MVP and trying to carry the load because teams that have just one guy, they don't go anywhere. They don't care who you are. You need.
What up, James Harden?
But forget the MVP thing, though. That's kind of the thing we were talking about earlier with like the ascension of both these guys having to get to a next level for the team to get to the title. Yeah. I think it's clearly the story of the season, which is that happens and they can get there. It doesn't, and they stay where they are, then they don't. But right now, I mean, you're in a position where a lot of teams don't have one of these guys. The Celtics have 2 of them, and that's the whole thing. If these 2 guys are 2 of the top 12, 14 players in the NBA, forget about it. Like you can fill with Semi Ojeleyes and Grant Williamses and get away with it.
That's the story of the season so far.
That's the story of the season. Right now, you've got Jaylen literally going games where he barely misses. He doesn't miss a 2-point shot. He's unstoppable with the ball. And then it's like, oh, yeah, there's also Tatum, who might be one of the top 3 or 4 most skilled offensive players in the game, who just puts forth an effortless 40 tonight. So those 2 things, I mean, like I said, is those guys – do this again, you can supplement with those other players and get away with it. And
in other words, no more complaints from John about Grant Williams minutes or Semi minutes.
Yes. Because
we're fine with the minutes. It's the shots,
right? You're the Lakers. You go get AD and LeBron, and then you fill with whatever jag wants to play for you because they want to jump and ride your coattails to a championship. That's how you do this. You get the 2 studs and everyone's like, I want some of that, and that's the key. And if they have it,
Smith factor,
that's everything, right?
Yeah, before they're doing what they're doing to start this year, that's what Teague and Thompson said was the whole motivating factor in them coming to Boston. And those are veteran, solid veterans that you're happy to have join the locker room there. I'll say this on Tatum, though. What spoke most to me about his importance in all of these different lineups, and I'm not underselling what Jaylen's done to start this year. They're down 12. They do a bench and Brown lineup. They cut 12 to 7 over the course of like 4 or 5 minutes. But then they swap Tatum for Brown, or they swap Tatum in for Brown. And it just flips 18 points like nothing. You know, he's out there with Semi, he's out there with Pritchard, and he's just pulling up. The score flipped 18 points like on a dime. And you can put Tatum in with pretty much anyone off a bench and survive. Not just survive, thrive. And I said this to you guys over text, like, it really almost doesn't matter what you put out there with him at this point in terms of bench units. Like, they could put Neesmith, Semi, Rob, and Teague, and they probably go on like a +9 stretch with Tatum leading that unit. And that's what speaks to me as most valuable. It's true that Brown's production on a stat sheet is going to make voters look at that and say, oh, they have 2 stars. But when you look at really like where the value comes from, who's producing for Brown, who's opening up Brown more, it's all Tatum. Like, he is the engine driving this team right now, even though Brown's numbers are a little better.
But you know that when the votes come in.
How'd you guys feel about Brad Stevens pulling the trigger on that? As soon as the Raptors got that second possession, down by 10, he just immediately was like, Jaylen, get in there, hurry up.
That's what we're talking about. That's where we're talking about Scal's call, the walk-up game.
The best part of that when he goes, trust me, I've been there, guys.
Yeah. That's the best call of his broadcast career, I swear. That was so funny. He's like, trust me, I'm a bench scrub. I know exactly what these guys are feeling. I went in there to hold a 26-point lead, and they had to bring the stars back on the bench. They didn't even make eye contact. Tatum and Brown walked in there like, really? And those guys were like, it was
you know what you did.
To be like, sad. KG had to take the ice off his knees. He was so good.
Draymond had the best face of all.
Like, I just smoked a J in the back. You know, like, I don't want to play anymore, man.
Yeah, come on.
Hey, down as he walks in.
1,000. We got 1,000 in the room right now. Toronto does it for us. I love this. I love these. I want to play Toronto every day.
I do too, but I want the games to be a little bit more competitive. I mean, geez. What's going on over there?
He really was. He tried to hide it. He was pissed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, this is the second night of a back-to-back. When you can get your stars off the floor a quarter early, you love that. You don't want to have to sit them and then bring them in at the end. Maybe they're starting to tighten up a little bit. Like, it's the last thing you want to have to do as a coach. I mean, this schedule is a grind, so you take those blowouts anytime you can get them and rest your guys. So it was pretty shitty that the bench couldn't hold it like that.
Yeah. Plus, the Raptors are infamous for that too. So Brad was like, "No, not tonight. Absolutely not."
Right.
Imagine this comeback. Oh man, that would have been.
Can we?
Not that well in the morning.